What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. Yesterday, the Pittsburgh Steelers played their Week 17 matchup of the 2023 NFL season in Seattle against the Seattle Seahawks, and I apologize, this video is a day late. The game was on New Year's Eve, so right after the game I went out for a New Year's Eve party. Didn't get a chance to review and upload the game yesterday, so here I am on New Year's Day. Happy New Year. I hope you guys are safe. I wish you guys happiness and health in the new year. And goodbye to 2023, hello 2024, and hello Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Pittsburgh comes out this week needing a must-win to get into the playoffs, just like Seattle was. Pittsburgh has not won in Seattle in like 40 years. Pittsburgh, I don't think, has ever won a game as a visitor in Seattle, so it was going to be a tough one regardless. Seattle is a pretty solid team who's also playing for their playoff berth. And Pittsburgh comes out and has one of the more complete games on offense you could ask for. Talking about this in total, Pittsburgh comes out again this week. They win the game 30-23. And so that means Mason Rudolph now as a starter is 2-0. I didn't want to jump in too hard last week playing against a bad Bengals defense, which we abused earlier in the season as well with Pickett. But Pittsburgh comes out this week and has 468 total yards, which I believe is our high for the season, and 30 points. And this is following last week where we had 34 points and like 396 yards of offense. So the two highest point totals and two of the highest yardage totals all season. Mason Rudolph's got this offense looking entirely different so far. And I'm going to give you guys some of the negative stuff first to be balanced here, because Pittsburgh has this way of when a player plays bad for one or two games, he's trash. When a player plays good for one or two games, he's the franchise savior. So let's bring some balance, just like I did last week, and say that in the negative sense, Mason Rudolph is not the most mobile. He is rather stationary compared to our other quarterbacks, and he has not been entirely accurate. His numbers look really good, and he's making good throws, and he improved even this week from last week. He made more different throws on the route tree. He looked very composed. This was a very positive game, big game ball to Mason Rudolph. We'll discuss. But he did have some throws that were caught that weren't great. He threw one to Deontay Johnson on the sideline that Deontay caught, but it was very far inside and could have been picked, but it was a good catch by Deontay. There was another one that he threw downfield that was really high to a wide open Deontay Johnson, and Deontay went up and got it. He should have hit him on the numbers, and the ball was very high, could have been knocked away or picked, but Deontay made a nice catch on it. Another one, Rudolph was under pressure and just kind of threw the ball up downfield, and Pickens ran under it and dove and made a nice catch. Not a bad throw, but Pickens was the one that made the heroic catch that made it spectacular. So the accuracy and the mobility we know is not really there. The accuracy is still somewhat in question. He's not been hitting things spot on. He's not coming out like the second coming of Peyton Manning or anything. But that being said, big positives for Mason today. He looks very composed out there. He looks comfortable. You can tell that if nothing else, this Mason Rudolph is highly evolved from the one we saw 2 or 3 years ago when Ben got injured and he came in and got benched for Duck Hodges. This Mason Rudolph looks much more comfortable. He's calmer on his feet. He's staying composed in the pocket. He's handling pressure better. He's going more to different throws. Today, like I said, he threw a bunch of different routes that look pretty solid. Mason looks, at the very least, like he's taken his time on the bench seriously, and he's played very well. This was a guy that was our third-string quarterback who could not even get a second-string quarterback job somewhere. We didn't want him back. He didn't want to come back, and he was forced to come back and be a third-string quarterback. But all of a sudden, after 2 starts, and after these high-yardage games and having the offense moving in tandem so well, you got to feel good about the possibility that Mason could be in the factor for next year. And I would not, at this point, with Mason being the hot hand, I would not go back to Kenny Pickett if he's healthy next week. I would not bring him back in after missing a few games and trying to play the last week of the season for a playoff berth. I would ride the hot hand, keep Mason Rudolph in, and see what you got for next season. We know Trubisky's going to be gone. He's not the guy. Between Kenny and Mason, right now, Mason has shown us more in these last 2 weeks than I've seen from Kenny in his entire 2-year career so far. Granted, he has not started any full seasons. He's been hurt. He started off on the bench last year. He showed promise in the second half of last season, but Mason right now in these last 2 weeks has shown better mechanics, better arm strength, better opportunity to take chances, and more of the route tree so far than Pickett has. Not only do we get 468 today, but we had 266 yards passing and 203 yards rushing. What a balanced attack. This is the first time all season, and maybe in as much as 3 years, maybe as much as since Ben's last season when Ben was kind of riding over the hill and slowing down, have we seen all the offensive players be effective. Mason looked good. Najee Harris looked very good. Jaylen Warren looked very good. George Pickens looked very good. Deontay looked good. Freiermuth looked good. Everyone got involved. Everyone got some chances. And that's what Mason is giving us that the other two quarterbacks have not so far, is whether or not he's the most accurate or the prettiest out there, he is giving our playmakers a chance to get downfield and make plays, and they're delivering. They are looking better for it. So, defensively, again, we gave 23 points up. This wasn't pretty. Seattle wound up with like 380-something yards, almost 400 total yards in this game. The defense is really banged up, so I don't want to harp on them too much. But these guys are still NFL players out there, and they're not playing all that well. That being said, we are on our 5th and 6th inside linebackers. The first 3 are out. Roberts, Quan and Holcomb are all out for the year. Blake Martinez came in and then he's hurt. Now we are down to Mark Robinson has gotten benched for all these guys. Even returning Miles Jack and Michael Walker, who's been up and down, they've been our starters. And Mark Robinson seems like somebody you just want to cut at the end of the year because he can't even play over these guys that are getting signed in Week 16. It's crazy. But we're down to our 6th and 7th inside linebackers. And with not only Minkah Fitzpatrick out again, like he's been for a lot of the season, with not Devontae KZ, the other one, Keanu Neal being out for the year, Trenton Thompson coming in and playing decently, but then him being out now as well. Now we're down to like Patrick Peterson going back to safety, which puts Levi Wallace back in at corner. Now we're thin at corner and safety. We've had Killebrew out there. We've had Elijah Riley out there. Nothing against those guys, but you don't want to see those guys out there playing legitimate minutes and starting. You don't want to see that. So this defense is paper thin. That being said, Seattle played very well. Walker, the running back, Kenneth Walker, played really well until he got hurt. He had like 55 yards and a touchdown. DK Metcalf torched our corners for over 100 and a touchdown. He destroyed us today. It was one of the worst performances our corners have seen all season. So the defense, in spite of being injured, needs to get as healthy as possible and needs to step up and play better. But let me get into the stats because I'm running long here. Mason Rudolph today, 18 of 24, 6 incompletions, really good. 18 of 24, 274 yards, no touchdowns, but no picks. When you're a third-string quarterback, the best thing you can try to do is not turn the ball over and be consistent, and he really was today. Very good stuff. Game ball for him. Also, 2 game balls for the run game. Najee Harris, 27 carries, 122 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Quickly discussing Najee. This is the best of Najee. When you see Najee getting a burst off the handoff, making a decision, picking a hole and going forward, fighting through guys, breaking tackles and finishing the run strong. I always said this was his strength, and when he's not doing this, that's when he looks his weakest. We saw the best of Najee today. It was his first 100-yard game of the season and only the 5th of his career, which is surprising for a guy being in his 3rd year as a full-time starter. But 122 yards, one of the best games as a Steeler. He was running through guys. He bounced off like 3 guys to get to the goal line and dive over for a beautiful touchdown the first time. And the second time he got stopped 5 yards short and pushed the pile along with Freiermuth and Washington for a beautiful touchdown. He ran like a maniac today, breaking tackles, stiff-arming guys, throwing guys to the ground. A physical, strong guy with a little burst and a strong finish. Najee killed it today. Also, speaking of killing it, Jaylen Warren, second running back, 13 carries, 75 yards and a touchdown, plus 20 yards as a receiver. Jaylen was a good bailout receiver today. He ran with good spin moves. He was throwing guys to the ground today. He has that change of pace where his speed and power combination is crazy. Warren is such a good guy to have in there as your number 2. And when this running game is playing as well as it did today, it's hard to stop anybody on this team. Another big game ball, George Pickens, 7 catches, 131 yards. Had a beautiful catch on a running across the field, diving for one, making sure the ball didn't hit the ground beautifully. Had another one deep today. He had another slant that he took on a 3rd down conversion in the 4th quarter. He's been on fire. In the last 2 games, George Pickens has what? He had 195 last week and 131 this week. We're looking at George Pickens here in the last 2 weeks, well over 300 yards. That is looking very impressive, man. Like 325 yards in 2 games, there's been no bigger benefactor than George Pickens from Mason Rudolph being in there. Excellent stuff. Deontay Johnson had a good game, 4 catches for 76 yards. He had some nice stuff downfield. Pat Freiermuth got a few nice plays, 3 catches for 44 yards. This is the first time that I've seen both starting receivers, both running backs, and the tight end all be effective and all play together. The balance of good passing, knowing when to check down, knowing when to take shots, knowing when to power run, knowing when to finesse run. We have it all right now with this team in there. Against the Seattle team that was playing for their lives, has a very hot crowd, and has a good underrated team. This was a very good win for us. Offensive line, I give pluses to as well because, again, we passed the ball well with Mason Rudolph. I think he only had 1 sack today. He was sacked just once. A couple times he was under pressure and made some good quality throws. Running game, again, ran for 203 today, which I think was our high for the year. So can't give anything but positives for the offensive line. The one negative I will say for the line, Mason Cole. Big minus on offense, only minus on offense. Mason Cole had 2 snaps. One was over Mason's head that he caught with one hand and brought down into a nice passing play. Another he picked up off the ground and converted a 3rd down. Mason Cole is not a good center. He's a decent blocker who's inconsistent but solid at times. But as a center, snapping the ball, horrible. Get a new center. That is a high priority. I think replacing Dan Moore is important next year, but more so replacing Mason Cole at center. Cole can be a good backup. He could be a good guard, but he is not a center. My goodness. Defensively, not a lot of splash. Again, Geno Smith was getting a lot of pressure from the outside linebackers. Watt and Highsmith were getting there a lot, but Geno Smith made them miss a lot. He was a magician today. Bouncing off contact, stepping up in the pocket, finding guys downfield, extending plays. Geno Smith was brilliant today. Also, had a hard time with gap control, stopping Walker, and again, Metcalf went off. Defensively, the only guy I want to mention for being a major positive today was Nick Herbig. He really only had one big play, but it was huge. It was the trifecta. He got the sack, the forced fumble, and the fumble recovery. He strip sacked Geno Smith from behind and got the recovery, so all 3 stats for Mr. Herbig. What a year for rookie Nick Herbig. He is going to fall to the wayside because he's not playing as much as Benton, or he's not as impactful as a Broderick Jones was for the run game, or JPJ was for the defensive pass game. But Nick Herbig, what a solid pickup. Special teams, sacks, and relief for TJ. He's been good, man. I like what he's doing this year. I'm going to give 3 minuses to our cornerback team today. Eric Rowe, I don't think he's played very well. He did have a pick last week and one nice deflection, but after that he gave up like 7 completions. This week he had a few nice tackles in the run game, but he was getting beat up a lot. Rowe is kind of like a lesser known version and a lesser splash play version of Levi Wallace, where he's going to be around the ball and he's going to give you a couple positive plays, but he's going to get beat for a lot of pass plays, and he's going to take some bad angles on tackles. Rowe has not, for the most part, played well in these last 2 weeks. He had 2 nice plays last week, but nothing big this week except for a few tackles in the run game. Rowe's not played very well. Levi Wallace has to start now at corner because Peterson is playing safety, which I like. I think Peterson is suited for safety. I think he's a very good safety. I think next year, having him start with safety next to Minka Fitzpatrick and having Neal or KZ as your 3rd safety, that's a really good team there. But Levi Wallace in there got beat for a touchdown in this game. I don't think it was a touchdown was on him, but he didn't play well overall. For 42, James Pierre came in and got beat for a touchdown by Jackson Smith and Jigba, so he gets a -2. JPJ gets a minus today. This is his first minus of the season for me. He got torched by Metcalf a lot. Again, DK Metcalf is one of the strongest and the most underrated receivers in the league. I would say he's a top 7 receiver in the NFL. He took JPJ to school today, beat him on slants, beat him downfield, had a touchdown that he dropped in the corner of the end zone. JPJ did not have a good day today. So JPJ, Wallace, Eric Rowe, and Pierre all get minuses from me today on defense. So, again, got to get healthy, got to get better in pass coverage. Inside linebackers got beat a lot today. Zach Charbonnet, the backup running back, was getting a lot of short catches. Parkinson got a few short catches. Noah Fant was their 2nd best receiver. Again, Michael Walker and even Miles Jack, to some degree, weren't covering very well. Chandon Sullivan did okay, but overall the coverage and the inside linebackers on this team are really rough. And whenever your outside linebackers are not getting your splash plays, minus the 1, you're going to get beat up. Special teams-wise, Chris Boswell was 3 for 3. Once again, he's had an amazing season, as expected. Presley Harvin, really good game today. 1 punt. When your punter has 1 punt, you're usually having a pretty good day. When your offense only has to punt once, you're feeling good about it. Harvin has one punt that goes 46 yards, and it goes inside the 20. When you get one punt and it's inside the 20 for 46 yards, one of Harvin's best games in a while. He's been inconsistent, and I think he may lose his job after this year, but played very well. But overall, again, Mason Rudolph has got this team feeling different. There's, again, with Najee and Warren running the way they are, the line blocking the way they are, Rudolph being able to take more shots downfield, having the confidence to pass on key downs, being able to sit in the pocket during pressure and make throws, it feels more consistent and more evolving than our previous quarterbacks have. So the offense is starting to hum, and now we are up to 9-7. So once again, for the people that like that Mike Tomlin stat of never having a losing season, the worst he can go is 9-8. We are now sitting at 9-7, so no losing season. I know people don't like that stat if you're a fan of the Steelers and want to see them go to the playoffs. What has to happen now for next week for the Steelers to go to the playoffs is not as crazy as you might think. Pittsburgh obviously has to win against Baltimore, and Baltimore has clinched the first seed already, so I'm guessing Lamar Jackson and a lot of the starters are not going to play next week, so playing the backup Ravens. Pittsburgh has to win that game, obviously, to get to 10-7. And then Jacksonville has to... Let me see. Jacksonville has to lose to the Tennessee Titans, or the Buffalo Bills have to lose to the Miami Dolphins, and both are playing for playoffs berth. So Dolphins beat the Bills, or Titans beat the Jags, plus the Steelers beating the Ravens. So we have to win and hope for one of two scenarios to happen for us to get in the playoffs. It's not terribly unlikely, but the most important thing now is we put ourselves in this position. We just have to win. It's no longer in our hands. All we can do is win our game and see what else happens. So who impressed you in this game? Are you ready to say Rudolph is the guy to come back next season? Do you think Pickett deserves more of a chance? What do you think is the biggest reason for the offensive line turnaround with the run game? Who impressed you? Who did not? Who needs to get healthy? Who needs to be cut on defense? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like these deep dives, please like, share, and subscribe. Share with your friends and comment and keep these videos active if you like seeing Steelers deep dives. And I hope you guys have, again, a healthy, happy, prosperous, positive new year. Happy 2024. I'll see you guys next week and hopefully helping the Steelers guide themselves into the playoffs. Take care, friends.